What if I told you that a drone bought for less than $1,000 with a piece of wire attached to it could shut down the power for an entire city, and that a small fleet could actually shut down the power to the entire United States? Not a theory, not speculation. It has already been attempted. And here's the part that nobody is saying out loud. If the grid goes down, the electrical power grid, everything else fails with it. The water stops, fuel stops, food stops. The Congressional EMP is electromagnetic pulse, the Congressional EMP task force said that if the U.S. power grid fails, that 9 out of 10 people would perish in less than 10 years due to societal collapse, starvation, disease, and worse. And the worst part, spent fuel rod pools at our nuclear power plants will eventually cook off and cover vast areas of radiation. Vast areas of the country will be covered with radiation for years to come. Why? Because they have zirconium cladding that burns in air when hot in contact with air. I've covered that in previous videos. But what I fear was, due to this, the Congressional EMP Task Force was optimistic. They said 9 out of 10 people. They did not account for this, I know, because I asked one of the key people on the task force, Dr. Peter Vincent Pry, about that. And he says, no, we did not account for that, Greg. Yes, it will be worse. I've had him on my channel many times in the past. He's passed away, unfortunately. But now we're going to break it down how this works. Why it's getting easier to take down the grid, and why you need to be concerned about it, why you need to get your preps in order. Just a few drones can take down the entire U.S. national power grid, as I mentioned. I have covered in the past the IEEE report that came out in 2014 that said that there are 9 critical substations in the United States. If taken out, would take out the entire power grid. Of course, it wouldn't be hard for bad actors to target a lot more. So what you're looking at right now is not science fiction. This is a real vulnerability in the modern power grid. A drone, a piece of wire, or better yet, a cable. That's probably the reason that one drone didn't actually succeed, is the wire probably burned up before it shorted out the circuits. So, you want to keep a piece of cable that can conduct a fair bit of current. Not hard to do. There's plenty of drones that can easily lift a piece of cable to drape across the power lines. So, yeah, and you got to have the right target. It can trigger a failure that spreads far beyond a single location. Cascading failures. Remember when the entire Northeast power went out because of a power line dripped when it got hot and drooped down and contacted trees in Ohio? Yeah, a lot of trees got trimmed after that. But here's the part most people don't understand. It's not just about breaking something. It's about triggering instability in a tightly balanced system. Now we're going to go deeper than the headlines. We're going to break it down for you, how these attacks actually work, why substations are so exposed, why defense is harder than it sounds, and why this threat now applies to every Western nation. So let's start with first principles. The electric grid is not just another system. It's the enabling system. Everything else depends on it. Water treatment and pumping, fuel refining and distribution. Those pumps at your gas station? Yeah, they run on electricity. The pumps that pump water up to that water tank on the hill in their community, electricity. Communications, hospitals, communications, like your cell phone even. Imagine not having your cell phone. Food storage and logistics, internet, banking, and of course, those spent fuel rods at the nuclear power plants, they have to have the cooling water pumped on them at a rate of about 160 gallons per minute. When that water is no longer being pumped in, it starts evaporating. There's a margin of about 20 foot in those pools, but when that evaporates and the rods get exposed to air, that stuff will cook off for a long time. Not pretty. Uh, but then again, my point is to take all these systems out, you don't need to attack everything. You attack the one thing that collapses everything else. And that, my friends, is the power grid. And here's the uncomfortable reality. The U.S. power grid was never designed to defend against cheap, precise aerial threats. So let's talk about how the grid actually works before we talk about the drones. You need to understand what we're attacking or what the drones would be attacking. The grid operates in three major layers. The first layer is power generation, the power plants that produce the electricity. The second layer is transmission, the high voltage power lines that move the power back and forth across the United States over long distances. And then distribution. Substations step up voltage to send it across the nation from the power plants that generate it and step it down to deliver it locally. So, yeah, step up transformers and step down transformers. Both are critical elements of the power distribution system. But these transformers that are required to do this, especially the ones for the long range transmissions, the high voltage transmissions, they're as big as a house. They weigh 200 to 400 tons a piece. And there's only a handful of really big trucks, trailers, and rail cars that can move them. I mean, a handful, like six or so of each. And you're talking thousands of these transformers could burn out all at once with a full-fledged attack. Not a pretty picture. If they burn out, it takes 2 to 3 years to get the replacement transformer on the loading dock where you're receiving it after you order it. With no grid, you have no internet, no bank account. So how are you even going to order them? Tell me that. And so, and then beyond that, how would you even pay for them without the banking account? When you get them a year or two later, after 9 out of 10 people have perished due to the societal collapse, and more than that, probably with the radiation threats, and the economy is collapsed. The companies that run the grid have collapsed. Who's left to install them if you could get it? You see, what we're talking about here, it's the end of the world as we know it. The WWIII event as we know it. Just from a handful of drones. You wait till you hear how vulnerable the whole grid is. And talking about the end of the world, are you aware of the contaminants in your everyday products that you use? So, guys, I've talked to you about this a lot. There are many contaminants in the products we use every day. All these good little products are just chock full of chemicals, heavy metals. I've even covered in a video previously how 90% of the toothpaste that everybody uses, including the ones that are made for kids and the ones that are labeled safe, actually have heavy metal contaminants in them. It's atrocious. And that wasn't even looking for the chemicals. Lots of chemicals are added into these products used every day, and even your lotions and your washes, uh, shampoos. When you put that stuff on you, sunscreens, it soaks in through your skin and goes straight to your blood stream. So these chemicals get in your system. Why there's so many chemicals out there? Well, there's a lot to that, but the short and easy answer is that these companies wanted to make their products cheaper. So what's happened? We got 12 companies that bought out over 550 different consumer brands. They want the products cheap and they want them to last longer on the store shelf, so they add chemicals to make that work. And not only that, there's some chemicals that aren't even labeled. It's just part of the byproduct of the manufacturing process that they've got that they're not labeled. And I've covered that in your dishwashing soaps. The stuff that you use every day, you put on your skin, stuff you eat, a lot of these snack foods, drinks, guys, they are bad for you. So, and not to mention that these 12 corporations, they're controlled by the three big asset management companies, principal among them, BlackRock. Yeah, our good friends at BlackRock, which is headed by none other than Larry Fink. Maybe you know about him. Maybe you know he also heads the World Economic Forum. So think about that. So every time you buy one of these products, that's what you're voting for and all the chemicals you get. But I got a way for you to get out of it. I've come up with a way to get you hooked into a company that is a family-owned company, not a big corporate conglomerate, not controlled by Larry Fink and crowd, that provides non-toxic products that don't have the chemicals and heavy metals, and they're extensively tested for safety. The products, even the cleaning products, are plant-based. And no, not glyphosate because it's not grains in that case. So, my friends, this is a family owned company that makes everything in America. And so you're supporting American jobs. So, this is a two for a three for a win because you get good, clean products. You're not supporting the big corporate conglomerates, the WEFs, and you're helping out small family. And you got the good stuff for yourself. So to do this, go to switchwithgreg.com. Switchwithgreg.com. I set this site up myself so that you could enter your data here and it goes straight to me. This is my website. This information is not going out to the world. It's not going to be shared. I do share it with one individual. I've got one assistant who will be contacting you and bringing you on board. So, and she's a member of the community, so you can trust her. No problem with that. So I assure you that your data is safe. So switchwithgreg.com. Check it out, my friends. Back to the grid. Now, here's the key. The entire system must remain in real-time balance. Supply must equal demand every second. The power grid instantaneously produces exactly the amount of power being consumed. That's a very complex machine that spans the entirety of the United States. Now, there are three main grids, but they do share power sometimes a little bit. There are three main grids in the United States: Texas, Eastern, and Western grids. I'll cover that. I've covered that in previous videos. So if that balance is disturbed, you don't just lose power locally. You can trigger cascading failures. Again, remember that Great Northeast power outage that occurred because a tree limb was hit by a sagging power line that overheated. Power lines get hot, they expand. When they expand, they sag. When they drip down, they might hit stuff. But in this case, we're talking about drone attacks. So what you need to know is that there's some research from MDPI organization that highlights a lot of the criticalities of this and things I've been talking about for a long time on this channel. Substations are physically exposed. They're widely distributed. They're all over the United States. Physically exposed are just out in the wide open. They're not hardened like military targets. Inside a substation, you'll find transformers like the big ones I just mentioned, circuit breakers, bus bars, insulators. And some of these circuit breakers are like big levers that swing open, and when they swing open, it will create an arc like lightning that goes across the sky as they try to swing this thing up. Pretty amazing stuff to see on some of these. But uh, many of these components are open air. They're out in the air. They're high voltage, like that swing arm switch I talked about. They are vulnerable to bridging faults. And that brings us back to the simplest attack method. This is where things get uncomfortable. The wire drop attack. Drones, a drone doesn't need explosives. It needs conductive material. A wire dropped across energized components can create a phase-to-phase short circuit or a phase-to-ground short circuit. Most of your power that goes out from these generators is three-phase. They got three different phases running at 60 hertz usually, and so you got lines for each phase, and you got a line for ground. If you short out any of these, or the wire drapes from a high voltage phase down to the ground, actually to ground it out, all these things can short out the transformers. It can short out it can cause the transformers to burn a slap up. Then you got to put it on requisition, and hopefully you got a grid to order it from, and 2 or 3 years later you might get it on the loading dock, maybe, if the whole nation isn't taken down. So things to bear in mind. So all this triggers, if you got a phase-to-phase short circuit, a phase-to-ground short circuit, what's that trigger? It tries to trigger the protective relays. The breakers trip, potential equipment damage can be expected. Even if you don't get the equipment damage, you got a disruption, major disruptions, which can lead to the other stations trying to, remember I said the whole grid tries to balance and provide instantaneously what's needed. Well, other stations try to step up and fill the gap, but sometimes they get overpowered. They're trying to do too much and they burn out for that reason. And that's part of what goes on with your cascading failures. So, yeah, here's the escalation path. You get a single event, a localized outage, then multiple coordinated events, load imbalance, frequency instability, and then cascading trips. And you hope it's trips instead of things burning. Could be one or both. And it don't take a lot of them burning to cause major long-term national problems. So this is how you go from an inconvenience to a regional blackout, from a regional blackout to a potential catastrophic national grid down. And this is a hypothetical. In July 2020, a drone, specifically a DJI Mavic 2, was used in an attempted substation attack, or it might have just been a test dry run attack. The payload, just a simple copper wire. The objective, create a short circuit across energized circuits. And that's it. Again, no explosives, no advanced weapons, just physics, a drone, a wire. Drones and wires are fairly commonplace. And here's where that matters. Substations are full of high voltage equipment with exposed components. They're not hard military targets. They're, like I said, they're spread out, often unmanned, no guards. How many times have you ever seen a guard at a power substation? How many substations have you seen? Lots of them. Ever see a guard at any of them? Yeah, right. So, and they're frequently in remote areas, which makes them ideal targets. And now, to scale that up, not one drone, but 10 or 50. Remember, I said take out 9 substations, you could take out our entire grid. And I talked on my previous video about 15 big ag sprayer drones, which were stolen, professional hit job. You need to watch that video. I'll put a link to it at the end. And then on top of that, drones are easy to come by. They're cheap. They're plentiful. A lot of bad actors may have fleets of these things already. So it's not hard to imagine 50 or even hundreds. What about, remember the New Jersey drone sightings that happen to occur all over the country? Why they call it New Jersey? Maybe that's where it started, but they're also in Europe. So think about that. Not one drone, 10, 50, or a coordinated swarm of drones. So now you're not talking about an outage. You're talking about system instability, a nationwide grid down event, which could be catastrophic. So why does this work so well? The attack exploits three structural realities. The grid is designed for efficiency, not defense. Minimal shielding, open design, cost optimized infrastructure. And the geographic scale, well, you cannot physically secure it because there's thousands of substations and thousands of miles of lines. Actually, we have about 700,000 miles of these lines. And these lines are vulnerable along the entire length, even out in unprotected, unseen rural areas. They pass through swamps, they pass through forests, over mountains, through the desert. Is it hard to imagine how somebody could just fly a drone over? I mean, think about it. This is target rich, easy, low hanging fruit that could bring this country down for the price of next to nothing. So, and the third thing is the reaction based protection. The grid doesn't prevent faults, it reacts to them, which means attackers only need to trigger events faster than the system can stabilize. So, let's, think about this drone capability versus defense. Everybody says, well, we can just do this, you can do that, you can do the other. So, the research points out a key paradox. The research has a big security trade-off. Drones have limited battery life, true, and payload capacity, although those big ag drones and a lot of the other drones, which have been sighted and seen that people say are as big as an SUV, the New Jersey drones, as big as an ATV. We've heard that a lot. So if you add encryption, AI, advanced controls, you reduce the flight time, and maybe they'll put gasoline engines on some of them. But here's the flip side. The attackers don't need long missions, secure comms, or survivability. They need one successful action, and that's it. This massively favors the attackers. So, so when the drone sightings occurred over New Jersey, yeah, this is not an isolated event. Similar patterns occurred across Europe. And that tells you something. This is not a random hobby activity. This is probing, testing, mapping vulnerabilities. Western grids share similar architecture throughout the different countries, similar exposure, which means the threat scales globally. Now, some of the protections talked about in some of the reports talk about, locations of cameras, or what's that going to do for, at the top of a power transmission tower. Well, if you're way out in the middle of nowhere, you see a drone, that drone's dropped the wire before you can do anything. You're not going to get anybody out there. So they've talked about more proactive defense measures. And we'll go into all this stuff in a little bit, but they've talked about different things. I'm going to bust that down. Why? those options just won't happen. We'll talk about that in a minute. But anyway, so multi-mode attack, let's kind of take this to the level. What would an attack look like? A multi-mode attack scenario. So let's kind of walk through a realistic scenario. Just one. Could happen many ways. Multiple drones hit stations in different regions at the same time or pretty close. Local outages trigger load shifts. Transmission lines overload. Protective systems trip additional nodes. And the grid fragments into unstable islands. Blackouts expand. And some equipment starts burning up. If those transformers burn up, we're in big trouble. But this is not hypothetical. This is how cascading failures occur. So, now let's go back to it. Why is the defense failing? You'll hear we can install countermeasures, but the reality says otherwise. We already know EMP protections are not widely installed already. We know it's not that expensive to add neutral ground blockers to the neutral tap of those big transformers, which would protect them from EMP. The technology has been in existence since before I chaired my first power grid defense conference back in 2016. And the company that developed the technology is trying to sell them here in the United States, and there's only a couple places that's actually installed them, just a couple. But the Chinese stole his data. The Chinese stole his design, and they've installed all across China. Interesting. They understand the threats. They're more secure. Their grid is far more secure than ours. But our guys here just don't wake up. They don't want to spend a little money to make you safer. They've actually spent more money from these big power grid companies, and I kid you not, I've covered this in the past. I've documented it. This was found by Command Sergeant Major Mike, getting brain lock. Anyway, the situation, my friends, is that they have actually spent more money lobbying against protecting the grid than it would have cost them to protect the grid. Can you believe that? It is heinous. Heinous. So you think they're about to do the stuff I'm about to lay out to you? The critical transformers remain vulnerable. So now we're supposed to deploy drone detection, interception systems, harden infrastructure, and across thousands of sites. What kind of stuff are they talking about? Well, they need to be able to detect the drones to deal with it. So maybe a camera, maybe some kind of radar system. There's a company that develops what they call a ground aware radar that could definitely help. It's a little small little portable radar system. But then they're talking about adding lasers like the ones that Boeing come up with to shoot them, or particle beam weapons, or RF weapons to take down the drones, and putting these on all these different towers, like one on every tower in the United States. They're talking about other countermeasures, like being able to shoot nets. Now, these things are technically possible, but you get into a lot of problems. Now, if you're just shooting lasers around in the sky, the FAA does not like that because you might blind a pilot, you might blind a person on the ground. You're going to have all kind of regulatory issues. And in fact, there's regulatory issues just for shooting down drones. You're not supposed to do it at all right now. The regulatory environment is not set up for your defense. And the other item, the final nail in the coffin, is if they won't even put neutral blockers on the big transformers, you expect they're going to put thousands and thousands and thousands of these all over the United States. We're talking, like if you got 700,000 miles of transmission lines, well, what would you have to install? 700,000. I mean, how far apart are these poles? Not a mile. So they're not a mile apart. So 700,000, 500,000, 100,000. Would they even put 1,000 in? I doubt it. I seriously doubt it. The technology may exist. The concepts may exist. That does not mean that you get the protection. And we've already known that. That's already been demonstrated by the power grid's reluctance to adopt the neutral ground blockers and other protective measures they could invoke and put in to protect you if the grid goes down. They don't do it. They don't care. They're taking your money. And they're using the money that you pay them to actually fund lawyers right out of K Street in Washington, D.C., that will, I know I've been there, that will actually lobby against doing this. It is nuts. It is nuts. So, Mike Mabee, that's the Command Sergeant Major I was trying to think of. Pardon me, Command Sergeant Major Mike Mabee. He's the one that dusted off this issue with the fact that the power companies will spend more money to lobby to keep from spending the money it would take to fix the stuff. It's horrible. Mike Mabee, yeah, he went up on 60 Minutes. He's been on my Green Regs channel many times as a guest speaker. He's kind of went quiet lately. Maybe he's under pressure like our friend, or certain other technology friends right now. Anyway, maybe I can get him back on one day. So, so what do you think about all that? Now we're supposed to, like I said, we're supposed to deploy drone detection, interception systems, and hardened infrastructure. Yeah, I'm not seeing it across thousands of sites. That's massive, slow, and expensive process. The threat is cheap, mobile, and scalable. Now, are you starting to see a pattern? Are you starting to see a problem? Are you starting to see a reason why you need to be prepping? Because as I said earlier in this video, this is a low-hanging fruit. It's easy. And the consequences are horrific, what this could do. So here's what matters to you. If the grid goes down, within hours, gas stations stop. Could be instantaneously. Depends if they got backup generators or not. Most don't. Within a day or two or three, the water systems fail. It just depends on, when they pump water up those big tanks in the sky up on those hills and towers. Once those tanks are depleted, that's it. And within days, you'll see food logistics break. The grocery stores only have at most 3 days supply of food. Your trucks aren't rolling. The refrigeration isn't working. The food will not be there. Are you growing your own? Within weeks, the spent fuel rod pools at the nuclear power plants cook off, and the radiation spreads. This is why power equals a survival multiplier. We've got to have our electric power, and you better have your plans for what you're going to do if you run out. So we just broke down something that most people don't even realize exists. The threat is simple. It's effective, difficult to defend. It can bring about the end of the world as we know it. Theowaki. And it doesn't stop there. Because if the drones can do this to the power grid, what happens when they're used against military bases, fuel depots, airfields? And that will be my next video on this topic. I'm doing a little short series of videos on these drone threats because the grid is just the beginning, although it is the Achilles heel to all the other critical subsystems. That's why you need to pay attention. So I want you to tell me in the notes below what you are doing to get ready. How are you preparing for the situation of a grid down? What are you doing? I have a lot of videos on this channel that tell you what you can do. You need to look for those videos. How would you survive in a grid down situation? I'm even thinking to set up a whole new channel that just focuses on that alone. So my friends, with all these things into account, here's the video that hasn't been watched that much on the drone threats. You need to watch this video on the threat of drones for the agricultural spraying drones for chemical biotax. This is a huge chemical biotax threat. And none of people have seen that one. Now, if you've already seen that video, I'm going to put up another card here. And this one is on general threats of the power grid and why it's far worse than you think. Okay, my friends, I want to thank you all for watching. Please, if you're not subscribed, if you got value out of this, bang the bell, click all. Subscribe, bang the bell, and click all. And share my videos. The platform here is stomping on me real hard. So, because they don't want the truth getting out. They rather people do fuzzy bunny and fuzzy kitty cat videos, which I ought to be able to do. I got cats, but I'm more interested in bringing to you what you need to know to protect you and your family. Eyes wide open, head on a swivel. Thank you for watching, and Greg out.